Welcome back to Law and Crime, everybody. We have an update for you in the Tara Grinstead case. Do you remember that Bo Dukes has been accused of helping accused killer Ryan Duke of burning the body of Tara Grinstead, their former high school teacher, back in 2005? Well, it should be noted there is an update regarding Mr. Dukes. He is now wanted by police for rape and related charges involving two women in an incident that happened on New Year's Day. He is currently at large. Police are looking for him, and it is believed that he tried to take these two women by use of force with the threat of a gun and tried to rape them. And now he's on the run. He might be suicidal. He's a danger. Everybody's looking for him, and we're trying to understand, what does this all mean? So joining us right now is a resident expert on the Tara Grinstead case, criminal defense attorney Philip Holloway. Philip, great to have you back here on Law and Crime.
Good morning. Glad to be with you guys.
I guess the first question I have is, if we know he has been charged in the Tara Grinstead case, how is he out on the loose? So how did this even happen? Shouldn't he have been in jail?
Well, that's the $64,000 question. Everybody's asking me the same thing. Just how is this guy possibly, out on bail? Well, ironically, he's under two indictments now in connection with the Tara Grinstead case, both of them having to do essentially with things that happened after her murder. But he's out on bond in two different jurisdictions in southern Georgia related to that. Plus, he's on federal probation and recently had a judge order him back to jail for a probation violation for failing to give or pay restitution in connection with theft of roughly $500,000 from the Army. But here's the thing. The judge in the federal case allowed him to delay report until essentially after the holidays. And, of course, this is alleged to have happened. These two new rapes and kidnappings are alleged to have happened right here at New Year's. And if my understanding is correct, I think today may have been the day he was supposed to report to federal custody. So this all looks like it came to a head, so to speak, right before he was supposed to go into federal custody.
Just so I understand, is there a mistake that was made? Could he have been brought into custody earlier and this might not have happened?
Well, certainly the federal judge could have ordered that he be taken into custody immediately. But as we know in the federal system, it's very common for defendants to be permitted to report to the federal prison system weeks or sometimes months after their sentencing date, or in this case is probation revocation hearing. So that in and of itself is not all that uncommon, but it is still very frustrating to people who see this and say, look, a lot of people think this is a person who has abused his connections, his family position, everything like that, and just has sort of gotten away from the hands of justice for quite too long. And that's the opinion held by a lot of people, and this seems to play right into that.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. It should be noted, though, that according to a press release, Dukes has made suicidal threats. He's known to drink heavily, and he has a history of cocaine use. If this ends badly, if he does not survive this manhunt for whatever reason, what does that do to the case, the Tara Grinstead case, and more particularly, what happens to Ryan Duke's case?
This is some of the same discussion that I've been having on background with my sources who are closely connected to this manhunt and investigation. And I can tell you that everybody wants him to be taken into custody without any incident. There's always a risk anytime something like this happens that someone could potentially take their own life. And I think that's why that information was put into the lookout that was sent out to Georgia law enforcement and say, look, this guy's potentially suicidal. But, of course, in the case of the state versus Ryan Duke, who is charged with her murder, Tara Grinstead's murder, the defense has already basically said that they're going to try to flip the script and say, look, it wasn't Ryan Duke that was the murderer, it was Bo Dukes. And, of course, this sort of thing would fall directly into their playbook and would suggest that maybe that's true. Maybe if they can get this evidence somehow before a jury, that in 2019 that Bo Dukes was charged with this horrific double rape incident, that, yeah, he's the kind of person that could, commit murder with respect to Tara Grinstead. So everybody from the defense team to law enforcement and, of course, Mr. Duke's family, everybody wants this to end peaceably and for him to be taken into custody alive.
Now, just so we understand, though, was it planned that if he's taken into custody alive and he, will be charged, was it the idea of the Ryan Duke defense team to put the blame on him and have him maybe, be called as a witness in that trial? Because again, the question is, if this ends terribly and he dies as a result of this manhunt, could they still target him because no one's out there defending him? He's not able to defend himself. So again, what will happen if he is taken into custody or he's not?
Yes, the defense team has essentially said that Ryan Duke was involved, but that it was Bo who was the actual killer. They've said that the confession or the statements made by Ryan Duke were false, and that he actually reversed the roles in some effort, and I'm paraphrasing, to essentially cover for Bo Dukes. But now he's saying, look, what I said to the law enforcement officers was essentially correct, but it's the other way around. Bo is the killer, Ryan is saying, and that I helped Bo. And so this is consistent with that theory. Now, how they might get it into evidence is still an open question, and I think it depends on a lot of different factors. But I don't think there's any question but that the defense team wants to be able to call Ryan Duke. If the prosecution doesn't, they want him alive. I think they need him as a potential witness in their case.
Philip, let me ask you, when this news broke and you saw this, were you surprised?
No, I think a lot of people credit me maybe with breaking it, because I got access to the wanted poster, or the BOLO, which stands for Be on the Lookout, and it was posted online, and then media started picking up on it. And then it was within a couple of hours, it was verified by the Warren Robins Police Department. I guess I was surprised that something so dramatic happened. I'm not necessarily surprised that Bo is in additional trouble, because trouble tends to follow this individual everywhere he goes. But this is really, really horrific. Some of the details that are now starting to emerge just tell this story of allegations, which, if true, are simply horrifying. What these two young women are alleged to have gone through is something that's almost indescribable. Fortunately, of course, they were physically injured. They were not. They survived the ordeal. But if some of the information that's beginning to come out now and is surfacing even in some media reports that you can find this morning, if even half of that is true, this is the kind of fact pattern that could send him to prison for the rest of his life.
Yeah, that's right. He's wanted on charges of rape, aggravated sodomy, false imprisonment, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. A lot of people probably look at this news update, see him on the run, and there are people who are saying, well, that just proves he is the killer of Tara Grinstead. He is the one who's the more responsible party. What would you say to people thinking that right now? Because everybody has tons of theories about what happened to Tara Grinstead.
The theories are endless, and I would just say to everybody, let's take a breath, let's pause and wait till all of the facts come in. It's easy to jump to conclusions, and your mind has a tendency to speculate and fill in the blanks when you don't know what the information is. Your mind uses its imagination and fills those in for you. So it's important to let's wait and see what happens. But I can understand why people who are skeptical of Bo Dukes and believe that he's the actual killer, I can see why this is easy for them to latch onto and say, aha, this is the kind of person who could do this sort of thing, and this is exactly what we've expected all along happened, unfortunately, to Tara Grinstead. That's not a very tough leap to make in one's mind if you're predisposed to believe that he's responsible for her murder. Well,
I think we can all agree it's just another chapter in the saga of this really brutal, tragic, and sometimes bizarre case. Philip Holloway, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate your insight.
Anytime. Happy to be here. Thanks so much.
Of course. All right, everybody, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're covering a lot here on Law and Crime.